Well, I started to write out some ideas of things I wanted to share, and as people came in the room, my thoughts were going all over the place. So, this might be my last captive audience talk, so you're going to have to bear with me today. And it may be all over the place. And I wasn't going to mention specific people, but I see them out there and I'm going to. So, you know, you're lucky in life if you end up having one job that you like. And I've been blessed to have 3. You know, being a teacher at Finneytown for many, many years, and having a chance to teach at Ursuline, which is a whole different dimension of education, and then working for the foundation. And the Finneytown job came quite by accident. I had interviewed with Princeton and Middletown, and when I got lost trying to find Finneytown, I thought it was kind of a school in the middle of a cornfield somewhere. What the hell, Finneytown? And when I got in the car that I was driving, I was a senior in college, I got in the car and I ripped the seat of my pants out. Completely. And so I thought, well, I can either drive back home and hope that those 2 schools would hire me, or I can take a look and see what Finneytown High School looked like. So I drove up Galbraith Road, and there was civilization up there, and I went to Finneytown, and it was a campus style, and it was green grass, and I thought, well, I'll give this a shot, but I'm a little concerned about the seat of my pants. So I went into the shopping center. Those of you who live in Finneytown, you know what I'm talking about, and there was like a Woolworths there, and I bought a sewing kit, and I went into this Ohio gas station at the corner of Hempstead and Winton Road, and it was real hot too, and so I closed the door, and of course as soon as I did, I sit on the toilet and took my pants off to sew them up. Somebody's going, hey, come on, I gotta go. Not right now. So I sewed my pants up best I could, as quick as I could, so I wouldn't be late for the interview. And then I went to the interview, and then the principal said, well, would you like to take a tour of the school? Well, you know, you can't say, no, I don't want to go. But all I was worried about is what my pants look like. Well, little did I know then that Finneytown was an open campus, and they had like 6 or 7 buildings, and every classroom was open. So when I walked down the hallway, I'm thinking kids are going to go, hey, look at those guys' pants, you know? I went, oh crap, so I walked along the hallway all the way down there. So I thought the interview went okay, so when I drove home, I was asked, all the way back to college, Bowling Green, what do you think? You think you'll get the job? And I go, well, I won't get it to be the home ec teacher, I guarantee you that. So I took my pants off, which were black, and I noticed that I had sewed them up with white thread. And it looked like I was sewing a sailboat, because it was just gaps and everything else like that. Damn, I'm not going to get that job. But I did. Now, there's a moral to that story somewhere, and I'm not quite sure what it is. So when I was asked to go to the foundation to talk about what I didn't like about their program after I cashed a couple $1,000 checks, you know, there was work being done on the 35th floor, if I remember correctly, because their offices are on the 36th. So I got off on the 35th, and I thought this was the way to go to their place, but it was a construction site, and when the door closed, it locked. And I couldn't get back to the elevator to go to the 36th floor. And I'm thinking, I'm going to be here all night, you know. So luckily there was an emergency phone, and I called and got security, and the guy goes, what in the heck are you doing here? And I said, well, trying to get to a job interview, I think. So luckily they forgave me. My first thought was, as I drove from the road from the 35th to 36th floor, they're not going to hire a guy that can't find the office. I know. There's a moral to that story somewhere, and I don't know where it is. Bonnie touched upon the impact of me being exposed to people and things that had never crossed my mind when I'm 40 years old and having taught for 20 years and meeting Buddy Gray. I told the story often enough in all your schools, I don't want to repeat it, but for those of you who don't know, a naive guy trying to get hours, get his master's degree, walked into the drop-in center and was asked why I was there, and I said I was here to observe, and I was told it wasn't the Cincinnati Zoo, I needed to leave. And I did, but I did with the challenge of seeing people differently than I think I had seen them in the first 20 years that I had been a teacher. And I truly believe that the day Buddy Gray challenged me to see people differently was critical in my life. I mean, usually when I tell this story to students, I say, you know, heard it somewhere, 2 important days in your life: the day you're born, the day you found out why. And that made the biggest difference in my life. And I later on asked Buddy if he remembered the situation. He said, no, I was the only guy that he'd thrown out before, but I was the only guy that came back. So I was honored. And I'm going to borrow a metaphor from Bonnie, talks about a freedom train. And I think our lives are like a train that's traveling along, and people get on and off that train. Stops at different places and different times. And so many folks have gotten on and off my train that have touched my life. Some for a brief amount of time, some for a long time. Some of them are here. Tom Klusman, who played basketball for me way, way back. And I was in the service in a different way, and Marty hit it right. He said, I was your coach. And Tom knew me when I was a basketball coach. And Buddy Gray even told me when I went away from coaching to do service, he said, well, you're just coaching, doing another coaching job. And you hit it right. And Tom thought enough of me to come up here from Winter Park, Florida. Tom's been the head basketball coach at Rollins College for 31 years and has been very, very successful. I told Tom when he came in that his social life in Winter Park has to pick up, that he has to come all the way to Cincinnati. Marty Kamrani. I talk about you all the time to my wife. About the kids you brought to our program, how you educated me about the students at Aiken and the students at... the other day I was over there at Aiken, Marty and I were talking, and Marty said, you know, Steve, if you hadn't been doing this job, I'd have retired 10 years ago. So I didn't know whether to take that as a compliment or a criticism. But I listened to you, Marty, because you gave me a perspective about a world that I don't think I knew. And I was smart enough to listen. You know, in the world of service, good service is when the server becomes the learner and those you serve become the teacher. And I think I practiced that when I worked with you folks, because you taught me, because I listened to you. And I told Donna, the first year that I was a consultant, I was horrible. I wanted to remake every school like what I knew, and that was Finneytown High School, because I loved that school and I loved those students. And I wanted everybody to have students like that. But I learned quickly, the resources are different, the demographics are different, issues are different, and I had to be a better listener, to be a better consultant. And Marty helped me with that. And you know, service has taken me so many different places. Over the Rhine, Pulaski County, Kentucky, which I call my second home. Crow Creek Reservation. Cuba, thank you, Ross. Dubai. But most importantly, it took me to your schools and to your students. You know, because every time I stepped on your campus, it was a new experience, a new journey. I have some students here that I'm going to tell stories on them. I hope you don't mind, folks. I got you here. You know. gym walking. Miami grad, worked for the city and working in some housing or doing something downtown, I'm sure, doing good. But I remember when we did our summer program, we were driving back on Central Parkway, and she turned and looked at me and said, she was a junior, senior in high school, and said, thanks for sharing all the powerful women. And I go, yeah, you know, when I look at all of our speakers and everything, they were all powerful women. But that was important for me to hear that. And Ross, I remember the stories that you wrote in a book about your first experience at the drop-in center that I think made a big difference in your life. And how a young man, you didn't tell me that story for a long time. When you were a freshman and you went to the drop-in center, the lady grabbed your face and said, honey, you don't really understand. But you wanted to understand it and you went back. And that was important. And Ina Boxer, if you knew Ina, you knew that we had unbelievable philosophical arguments about a lot of things. And Ina and her sister always challenged me. But God, that was good stuff. That you made me, your teacher, think. You know, Rob Herman, probably one of my first volunteers in the 80s, goes to Drake Hospital, is challenged by Drake. And thank goodness the Drake volunteer coordinator was a good friend of mine. It's my wife. And she nurtured Rob through dialogue and working with elderly and senior citizens. And I know it touched Rob's life. I got an email from a student the other day who, I've told about half a dozen people this, but to know, and all of you in here, I think I'm preaching to the choir, but you never know what you say to a student, particularly in a service experience, is going to change who they are. Some of you know, and for you younger teachers that are here, I had a young man, the email said, are you my 11th grade teacher, history teacher, and my service coordinator? And I wrote him back and I said, yes. I said, what are you doing, PJ? He said, I'm working at Cleveland Clinic and I'm a chief of a cancer program, and I wasn't quite sure what the program is about, but if it's Cleveland Clinic and it's cancer, it's pretty heady stuff. He said, what I remember about service is when I went to the drop-in center and we were on the service line, and I was so consumed about the appropriate amount of food on the plate that I looked down, and you came over to me and said, PJ, your gift tonight is not the size of the portions, but it's looking eye to eye with the people who come through the line and say, hi, how are you? That's your gift. And he said in his email, I've never forgotten that, and I use that with the people I work with who come to Cleveland Clinic. With the support of the Mayerson Foundation, I've been able to do so many great things and spend their money. You know. When we wanted to start the summer program, I fell back on the times that I had done our summer program at Finneytown. We used to do 2 weeks, remember that, guys? And we would ride in police cruisers on the weeks before, the week in between the 2 weeks. But when I wanted to do this, I knocked on the door of Alice Skirt's Salvation Army, because I'd heard Alice talk at Miami when she was giving a presentation about a bag woman and taking you through a bag, and she would pull out. I still remember that, and that's been a long time ago, Alice. And she would pull out and she said, well, in this bag here's some pictures of my children that I haven't seen because I'm kind of embarrassed. Here's a bar of soap wrapped up in cellophane because I go to the bus station. Remember that? Yeah, I'm sure you remember that.